As the Fabled says, the most played deck is also going to be seeing more showings here on our feature match. I've actually not been previously super known with these players, but it's always great to see new faces on stream and new faces doing good consistently too.
That's what it's all about. These trainers have been working tirelessly through the season to claim as many championship points as they can, and this is the final opportunity in Europe to accumulate those championship points to get yourself to the World Championships. Of course, the winner at the end of this weekend will be given a direct invitation, in addition to a chunk of championship points and booster packs and the lot, of course, glory on top of all that. But here we go, getting into our round number 8, our final round of the day. We're going to see some prize cards from both players. Serendipity EX in the prizes for Vincenzo sometimes can be awkward when your opponent's putting on pressure quickly. Sometimes you need the additional draws here and there from the Serendipity EX, but here we go, Jesper, we see the fist bump. It's a Blood Moon Ursaluna EX start for Vincenzo, and Victor is kicking things off with a Mew EX.
And I'm sorry to say it here, but Blood Moon Ursaluna is an ew whenever you're starting with it in the active position.
Yeah.
It hurts a lot to see, since it is very, very good at the later stages of the game. It's very good to clean up these games, and we've always been talking about it, get to clean up these game states. But yeah, starting with it, it has one chunk of a retreat cost.
The good news for Vincenzo is he is playing a build with Latias EX, so he might be able to Skyliner around and move that Blood Moon a little bit easier than some other builds. But Vincenzo's first search is going to be with an Ultra Ball. The priority of this Stage 2 archetype is to work towards your Dragapult EX. Phantom Dive is an incredibly dangerous attack, dealing 200 damage to the active and allowing you to place 6 counters on your opponent's bench in any way that you like. That flexibility is what makes Dragapult so dangerous. You can play around your opponent's draw engines, most notably Serendipity EX, on your opponent's side of the field. So don't be surprised if Vincenzo is taking turns off taking prizes altogether and then suddenly taking 4 or 5 in a turn.
Yeah, maybe even 6 prizes in one turn. You can even do that against these decks, since, well, you can pull up the Serendipity, do 200 to it. Then you can counter catcher a Miraidon, do 200 to it. And then you can counter catcher the third target, which could be, well, a Pikachu or whatnot, and then take 6 prizes in free attacks. It's something that Dragapult often does against these decks that have limited draw capabilities, as we've mentioned with Joltik only being able to draw cards off the board with Mew and with Serendipity. And yeah, attached to Dreepy, exactly what I wanted to. Could have been wanting a few more Dreepies to establish that setup, but yeah, everything Victor's looking forward this turn is a Joltik, a way to get back into it. Well, we do have Mew with free retreat, and then get him right on and play an attacker's butt.
Oh,
wait
no,
a second,
Jesper.
there is honestly nothing in Victor's hand to do anything here.
It is typically so simple to get your Joltik attacking. You simply require the tandem unit ability of Miraidon EX to get not only the Joltik, but also the attacking Pokemon you would love to power up with Jolting Charge. But Victor, without Ball Search or any useful supporter card, having to simply attach to Mew EX and pass the action over, Vincenzo evolving straight into his Dracloak. These stage 1s are phenomenal. You're able to use Recon Directive, looking at the top 2 cards of your deck, you cherry pick 1 to the hand, then you throw the other to the bottom, and that's going to really smooth out the turn here for Vincenzo, because now we have a Jacques coming in.
I'm sorry, Joe, but it's not like we're asking so much of Victor, and yet he does not deliver. And I think it must have been one of the first times when you're 7-0 this happens, but it can happen with every single deck. And, well,
your opponent's had a worse start. That's the good news.
Yeah, your opponent's had a bad start. If Vincenzo had well, you could have gone Budju, Latias, and just started the item lock, and then in next turn be able to take out the Mew as the only Pokemon and essentially donking Victor. We still yet to see it. We still have a top deck hope from Victor, but really, really far behind already with the Dracloak being in play, with Ultra Ball, Jacques being able to find additional Pokemon. And we do get to see the Ultra Ball, which can then further the setup with more Dreepies. Even though there's 2 Dracloaks in the discard pile, just Jacques for another 2 Dracloaks. He has 1 in hand and the unfair stamp if need be. And currently, regardless of what happens on Vincenzo's board, Victor needs to give response here. It's
a devastating top deck. Victor draws a Vitality Band. Not good at all. It does mean we can unlock the Ace Nullifier Genesect. That at least shuts off the unfair stamp. But Victor's far and far away from attacking right now. I
was about to say, if you need to, it's fine shutting off the unfair stamp, but to play the unfair stamp, Victor has to take a KO first.
Right.
And that's not going to happen the way we're looking at it right now.
You can't even lower your hand size for an easy restart. You just have to pass things over.
I mean, we did see you being super, super good in our last round, but genome hacking right here is not going to give the same effect as it does against an EV toolbox. So, yeah, Victor's just being stuck here in a situation, and we might also be thinking, it's pretty good for Victor at least that he's playing a fast deck. Let's say it like that. True. And, you know, Vincenzo still needs to hit something like the Latias to get the Blood Moon Ursaluna back. Still needs to hit an energy to fulfill the attack cost from Phantom Dive. But he's itching closer and closer and closer whenever he's using these recon directives to get cards out deck. And we do see Latias already, so not a lot left.
It's already online, and I think with Buddy Poffin, so at the very least Vincenzo can go into Budju and start denying the top decks from Victor from helping him out.
Reducing energy, so not much left to be needed here, and can use the Buddy Poffin and the Latias to get into a Budju. Get the energy from the current recon directives to start setting up these attackers. Victor's deck is not really well equipped to take out Dragapult beyond playing Clefairy and Crispin, but that looks a world away from what Victor's actually attempting to do right now.
I feel like Vincenzo has to, finds the Arven as a supporter as well. Again, just helping that development even more here.
We get to see the Buddy Poffin getting out for the Budju. Could potentially, we don't even need to get a Dreepy, could do it. Even like there's 2 Dragcloaks already being discarded. Could get one of them back with a Night Stretcher, so to speak, as well. But it's just getting harder and harder and harder when you Victor. The more time a Dragapult deck gets, typically the more powerful it is. The same with Gardevoir in this format. And a deck like Joltik Box has to win within the first like 4 to 5 turns of the game. If it doesn't do that, it's typically pretty weak compared to, yes, Dragapult, who's spreading 260 damage total a turn.
Yeah, this is really not traditional. You would not typically see a matchup go like this. Vincenzo has even had a slower start, but is slowly reconning his way into a better position, whereas Victor has had none of the atypical turns for him. Another top deck, and now it's the Ball Search card, but it's shut down by the Itchy Pollen.
And even if Victor was able to use the Nest Ball, there's no energy in hand to get the Joltik.
I've tried it.
Yeah, I mean, even if we could, even if Vincenzo could be like, yeah, you can play 1 item, it wouldn't matter at all.
At this point, there's still 43+ minutes on the clock. Do you ever think, let me have 2 more shots at this? No, we're going to retreat the Mew EX.
Even if you're playing a deck like Joltik, yes, you will be able actually to play 2 games in 40 minutes. I don't think Victor has to usually think about having to concede games to save time.
Yeah.
And also being at a 701 score, if you think about ties, etc., is a really good mandated score after a day 1 regardless. So I don't think Victor's thinking about it.
That's fair.
When you're playing Joltik, you're playing a deck that can play the free full games every single time, because your win con is so fast when you're comparing it to the amount of turns you need to win.
That's a fair comment. Vincenzo has now used both recon directives. Is he able to launch any attack here, or is he still going to chill behind this Budju?
I mean, we just get to see Itchy Pollen and chill here, guys. And, well, I'm not super angry about it. He can take all the time.
It's the right thing to do, yeah.
Yeah, right now, Victor has no help in whatever he's trying to achieve. So, yeah, Itchy Pollen and chill.
Yep, it would do 0 damage, but that's not the point of the Budju. It's all about slowing down your opponent's outs as you work towards building multiple Dragapult EX. Even though there's not much going on Victor's side of the board, it wouldn't take much. Like you said, with the Lily's Clefairy EX being an aggressive basic Pokemon, thanks to its Fairy Zone ability, is so threatening for the Dragapult. It can be burst onto the board via a Crispin supporter. So even though Victor doesn't have much at all, Vincenzo still has to tread carefully here and is doing all he can. And that's why we're seeing a continued Itchy Pollen here. Another Ball Search item card, crucially, that can't be played off the top.
Yeah, Ultra Ball usually such a helper. Could also like free up cards for restart, but not in this case whenever it had the Itchy Pollen going. And I think for Vincenzo's side, we're talking that Vincenzo wants to have basically a Dragapult and a half ready whenever you start attacking, so you don't get to have any issues with Clefairy getting the 1-hit knockout, because then you could be able to answer that straight back. And with the ways of things that he's going for Vincenzo right now, he's under no stress to do anything. Victor still needs 2 cards to do anything. He needs a Miraidon, he needs an energy. Miraidon can go ahead and get your attacker and the Joltik, but needs the 2 cards at once, where Victor's sitting with neither of them. And not to forget, Victor doesn't play any draw supporters beyond the one Iono.
Yeah, that's just the way that the Joltik box has been built. You're typically cherry-picking pieces, whether it's energy via the Crispin or via Arven grabbing items and tool cards. And then, of course, Boss's Orders also a 4-of within the deck. You play the Iono just for some panic disruption, really, more than anything else. So you don't cycle cards, and when you sometimes just get caught short with Budju launching attacks before you're able to find Miraidon, things really can get tricky.
Yeah, so we do see Vincenzo finding the Dragapult, although it might not be the turn yet. As I was talking about, you kind of want a Dragapult and a half in terms of the attachment. You want free energies on board, does evolve into the Dragapult, but
there's your half.
The Dragapult and a half is the XP share we get to have there. And it Boss's Orders onto you to make worse, even worse.
This is huge. Now you're taking 2 prizes instead of 1, setting up the Genesect for a KO, and the Mew EX is a Psychic type, so you have to take away this threat. You do not want Victor finding a Lily's Clefairy, and suddenly you're the one being Phantom Dived for double the damage and a massive KO. So
and now we have to have
threat.
Victor trying to catch up. Nest Ball, Earthen Vessel, stuff is going to come into play this turn, although he needs to go Joltik this turn.
Yeah.
Then Vincenzo's going to be able to take 2 more prizes because of the Genesect being able to be knocked out by the Fainted Dive bench damage. And then we're looking at it, well, Joe, then Vincenzo at some point just has to use that Blood Moon or Saluna to take out one of those 2 prize basic Pokemon, and I think that's pretty easy once we come to that stage.
The only good news is that there's only 1 Dracloak in play. I think that's the only thing keeping Victor in the game at this stage, to say maybe at some point if I do find my 1 Iono, take a KO, maybe I can catch Vincenzo out. So that's the only wiggle room here, but Victor has to move. Oh, it's going to be Pheasantipity EX. You can see Victor wanting to get aggressive if he can, knowing that he probably doesn't have time to even use Joltik here at this stage. Like you said, Jesper, it pushes Vincenzo down to 2 prizes way too easily. So we're grabbing Lily's Clefairy EX, and we're hoping for the best here. Flip the script has to help us out. This
could be pushing Vincenzo down to 1 prize, if ever so happens. Not that we're going to be able to see a full prize sweep next turn, but we can still be able to see the knockout from the Clefairy. The experience share, we're reckoning that Vincenzo does remember it, is going to have the Psychic Energy move down to the bench Dracloak. And then you just, quote-unquote, need an energy attachment and a Dragapult DX to then be able to go back at the Clefairy, unless Victor hits one of his 2 Bravery Charms. And that has to be the saving piece that Victor has to hit. Otherwise, Bleak got a bit more bleaker. That's a great shout. The Bravery Charm would be a massive hit from these 3 cards from Flip the Script. Victor needs to find a way to move this Genesect as well. 3 cards. Well, the Poké Gear could help out. We have Nest Ball as well. I feel like this has to be for the Skyliner Latias EX at this stage. So there's our tree, and then we can Poké Gear for Crispin, and that would be pretty nice. We do see Victor check in, and we do need to see a Psychic Energy check in for the Crispins. There's 1, there's 2, there's 3 Crispins, and there's Psychic Energies in there still, so we can get to, if we hit the Crispin off it, he just needs to recheck for a Psychic Energy again. But if we do hit a Crispin, yes, we can get the knockout with Clefairy, but yes, as said, Experience Share to Dracloak, and then 2 cards. And then the Clefairy's gone, but Victor, of course, has to play for his outs in this case. Before using the Poké Gear, we'll thin a couple energy out. Typically, Joltik does this for you. But in this case, Victor's going to have to do it the manual way, with Earthen Vessel pulling out. Essentially, not the Psychic Energy is the most important thing here, knowing that you need to Crispin. Well, you have 2 in the deck, so you can still pull 1 to the hand. It doesn't quite matter if you even pull both of the Psychic Energy, because you can still then go for something like a Metal Grass, and you still get the 1 attachment from Crispin that you want. So actually, pulling 2 Psychic Energy could be favorable, but that's a whole other discussion here. We still just need to see Crispin off the Poké Gear. It's a massive that's 7 thing cards. We have to do here. If there's no Crispin, I think we're picking up our cards, Jesper. Yeah, doesn't look... It looks like an Arven, Joe. I can't quite see the Crispin there. You can now Bravery Charm the Clefairy and attach 1 energy to it and hope for the best, but then a Phantom Dive, with lack of better words, that just sounds incredibly bad. Incredibly, he says. Well, gets to Arven, does what he needs to, and I mean, if the Genesect sticks in the active and there's no boss being played, that could still be all right. Then we're still on the same prize card counter, essentially. But, yeah, gotta get the Nest Ball potentially getting the Miraidon there, and the Bravery Charm off the Arven. And yeah, trying to establish a setup here, perhaps with the Joltik, but then we're going down to the low amount of prize cards. And yeah, okay, 10 immunity for Joltik.
Is at this point where you're saying, well, if I don't do this approach, you will just put 6 on the Clefairy. You're almost enticing your opponent to put the 6 on the Genesect and go down to 2 prize cards.
Yeah, so you can kind of
sweep the board.
Go Clefairy Iono, right?
Yeah.
And but yet, like, regardless of what happens, if Victor goes down low enough, either no energy on Blood Moon or 1 energy will always be able to take out the Clefairy, regardless of there's the Bravery Charm or not. True. Which means that you still have to, at some point, deal with that Blood Moon or Saluna, or basically tell Vincenzo, if you just hit an energy, that's all I can do. Yet, Victor owes it to himself. When he's been playing this game so far out, has to try and do his best towards trying to pull this back. But yeah.
Hanging on in there then.
Yep.
A bunch of energy charged up via Joltik. Vincenzo already has a 2 prize KO laid up for him. You can simply deal with the Joltik in the active, finish off the Genesect if you would like. Or do we want to hunt one of these other Pokemon?
You see what happens after your clock here. The recon directive is always so important, and Vincenzo typically wanted to have 2 or 3 of those in play at this stage of the game. Although has had the luxury of an opponent who has been drawing terribly throughout the entirety of the game, but now starting to see something that should have been looking like a turn 2 board off Victor here, really, in like turn 7.
We're not in turn 2 anymore. I don't see any boss's orders in the hand, as far as I can tell.
Not really. So the enticing part about it is that if Vincenzo goes for a knockout on Joltik and Genesect, it means that the unfair stamp, which currently is in Vincenzo's hand, is going to be live for whenever the Clefairy gets there. It means that Vincenzo's always going to be able to essentially get a itemized supporter in that unfair stamp to draw more cards and be able to hit that energy plus Dragapult that he would then need on the following turn after the Clefairy knocks out this Dragapult. Even with Fescentipity on top, being able to draw, well, 5 from stamp plus 3 from Fess, plus 2 from the Cloak even. So you're going to get to see 10 cards in total after that, which means of 10 cards you need, well, a Dragapult and an energy, essentially.
It's so impressive from Vincenzo to realize the position that he's in. He knows he's edging closer to a checkmate scenario, so Fescentipity EX will give him a lot more insulation, floats the 1 damage counter onto Victor's Fescentipity EX, goes down to those 2 prize cards, and says, Victor, you have to deal with this Dragapult. It's too dangerous to be left around, and you also have to force me to dodge 1 energy card to win the game.
Yeah. Although, with the Clefairy going out there with the Bravery Charm, yes, it's going to be able to be sturdy enough to stand against the 1 Phantom dive, but with the 10 damage counters on the Fescentipity there, it has exactly 200 HP left. And let's just say that this Dragapult goes down, Vincenzo doesn't find the out, yet still there's a Block Moon or Saluna we have to look at in a couple turns' time.
Does Flip the Script find Iono? I don't see it in the hand. That would have been massive, but I think it's a miss.
And Joe, I already do see an Ultra Ball over in Vincenzo's side, so it means that we get 1 of these cards that we need. We need 3 cards from Vincenzo. We need Boss's Orders. We need Fire Energy or Luminous Energy, and we need a Dragapult. The Dragapult can be sort of guaranteed with that Ultra Ball there, and then we just need to follow the rest home.
Well, yeah, I mean, the Blood Moon Ursaluna still not powered up because there's been no prizes taken just yet from Victor, who goes into the Miraidon and instead uses Boss's Orders. He's just going to hope to dodge a gusting effect for a turn here and take away draw as he does.
Well, I do already see, well, now it's a moot point with that, trying to take away the card draw. Vincenzo already spent some Night Stretchers earlier in the game, which then this makes sense then. Gonna go ahead and draw for turn. We do see a Luminous Energy being able to perhaps power up either the Dracloak or the Blood Moon or Saluna, and the Unfair Stamp still being live, although, well, basically due to the Genesect not being recovered.
Yeah, you can try and use the Unfair Stamp this turn, lower your hand size down, use Unfair Stamp, see if that can get you towards a Boss's Orders to close the game this turn. But honestly, Vincenzo doesn't have to win the game this turn. Could simply come back into the active with that Dragapult EX and set damage up across a number of these Pokemon, put them all in range. He even has that Luminous in the hand, that was drawn, so he can even attach to the Dracloak if he wishes.
There's going to be a Bravery Charm onto the Blood Moon or Saluna, but yeah, what you can essentially do is you can go Phantom Dive for 200, put that within range, Luminous to the Cloak, So the Clefairy 40 damage.
Sure.
10 on Pikachu, 10 on Latias.
Yeah.
Perfect spread.
Yeah.
Because then whatever happens, a singular Phantom Dive, regardless of Braver Chance being attached to extra, because Victor only plays 2, he's going to be able to take the game with the Dragapult. So in this spot, Vincenzo's just looking at it, how do I lose? That's going to be a question he has to ask himself. And from this spot on, if you can just make sure you can attack, then you're not losing.
It's one of those moments where you feel like you're closing in on that victory. Well, the Luminous goes on to the Blood Moon Luna EX instead here, and it will be the unfair stamp launched from Vincenzo. Victor being given only 2 cards to deal with, and Vincenzo now will be drawing a fresh 5. Can still win on this turn, I must stress. The boss's orders will win the game on the spot here.
But yeah, Vincenzo doing everything he can to fin out. And do we see a boss's order is going to be the big question here. Night Stretcher could be drawing more cards with Festivity, and the Recon Directed could be doing more, but we don't see a boss yet. And we do see a boss there off the Recon Directive. Gotta play the boss's orders onto the Festivity EX. Take out the game with Phantom Dive. We do see the fist bump there, and Vincenzo Tipola goes up 1-0 against Victor Shaw and inching himself one step closer to being 8-0 here in phase 1 of the Bologna Specials.
Really impressive play from Vincenzo there. Felt like because his opponent had this slower start, he was then able to take things slow as well. This is by no means the ideal opener for a Dragapult player. Just one Dracloak in play, that one Recon Directive, finding your stage 1s before you find your basics. Everything seemed to be a little bit out of sequence, but fortunately for him, Victor had an even worse time of things than Vincenzo. As soon as he established the Itchy Pollen lock, Victor began top decking item into item, which was devastating, and it did allow Vincenzo to have this great turn, bossing up the Mew EX in order to have a really impactful Phantom Dive, a 2-prize KO, while setting up that Genesect, which, as we know, came in clutch for later, Jesper.
Yeah, exactly as we see there from Vincenzo. Yeah, Phantom Dive is so-called the best attack in the game. We see it for a reason, being able to set up that Festivity with the 10 damage and getting that boss's orders off the Recon Directive. And yeah, mercilessly went through the resources of Victor here, but we have to stress, I have not seen that bad of a game off a Joltik player ever.
That's the good news for Victor. He still has half an hour. As you said, Jesper, this deck is known for having 4-turn games when it's doing what it wants to do. So we can still get 2 wins on the bounce and still recover from this position. He did spend a lot of time in that game number 1 where things looked a little bit dire. I personally would have loved to have seen a small, decision earlier on, to just move on to that game number 2. But there was still that wiggle room. I can see why Victor stayed in it. And, you don't get to an X&O record by just conceding games, I suppose. But we're getting into...
Oh,
3 Iono! Vincenzo, that's one of your best weapons to disrupt an aggressive archetype. Victor's forced Vincenzo first here, who leads with a Budew. And we do at the very least have a buddy-buddy Poffin, Jesper.
At the very least, we did not see that from Vincenzo, although he went first in the last game. But I really do need to stress this, Joe. There's a Miraidon on Victor's side.
Ta-da!
We're safe.
We're playing a game. That's typically all it takes for Victor to be in the game. Buddy-buddy Poffin's so crucial for a lot of decks in format, especially these stage 2 archetypes that have the low hit point basic Pokemon that love to evolve up into the stage 1s and 2s. In this case, Dreepy is the best friend of this archetype, and I imagine we've got to be seeing 2 coming down straight away here from Vincenzo. It's so vital. It's the draw engine, it's the attacker. You saw how it took over the game, given enough time and chances in that game number 1, that Vincenzo has to try and do more of the same here.
Yeah, with Budew already being in play, there's no time for consideration. Vincenzo, of course, taking a little bit of time to make sure that he has whatever he needs to follow through with this game in terms of the prize checking ability here. So yeah, Buddy Poffin's straight up for those 2 Dreepies, wanted to get that draw engine into play. And when we get to see, hopefully get to see a Jolting Charge from Victor next turn, we get to see the the intricacies of this matchup in terms of, well, Jolting Charge onto Iron Hands. How quick can Dragapult actually respond to what's going to go on from Joltik's side? Because the way that the slow Dragapult deck plays against Joltik typically is Joltik gives out the questions. Dragapult then has to try and answer those with unfair stamp, Ionos, and setting up multiple prizes to avoid the festivities.
And not only that, but chasing after the energy attachments. That's why it's great that Vincenzo found an early energy drop, because we saw that EXP share was crucial in that previous game to have multiple threats, you know, represented in one go. I feel like an Iron Hands can hit the board, even if there is a response attack from a Dragapult. If a Lily's Clefairy comes in and instantly deals with it, if Vincenzo hasn't already got the EXP share down, or has had to make some awkward gymnastics, doesn't have necessarily Dracloak in play, Victor can run away with the game. As we're getting into the first search here from Victor, he has prized his rescue board, so probably will have to get Latias EX in the mix in order to move his Miraidon EX out the way here. But the tandem unit instantly grabbing 2 of your lightning types. And for those who didn't see it in the first game, because it took so long, the Joltik is the critical component in the early turns for this archetype. The jolting charge attack, for just 1 colorless energy, can pull 4 energy out your deck. Immediately, a combination of 2 lightning and 2 grass. And hey, look, that's great for Iron Hands EX.
And we'd also see multiple nest balls, but no need to play them since there's already a Latias in Victor's hand. Gotta retreat and go back into the jolting charge. And you know what I reckon here, Joe? There's gonna be a Hands gonna run wild, and even the nest ball for the Genesect being able to slowly start setting that up and thinning out the deck. When you're playing Joltik, we've touched on this multiple times. There's not many ways of just straight up drawing cards whenever you want to. But then the greatest ability of this deck is actually just thinning out the cards you don't want to be drawing. And even a nest ball for the Clefairy, everything is being set up here.
Victor getting so aggressive. And yes, but with those 3 prized Iono, if there is a tool coming onto this Ace Nullifier Genesect in time, you can really deny the disruption from Vincenzo. That's going to be massive for Victor, who's not content with his turn attachment, will also be able to crisp in here.
He's just hitting everything turn 1, mate. I'm telling you, whenever you're able to crisp in the psychic energy onto the Clefairy, jolting charge with 4 energies on the Iron Hands, you've got everything you could possibly ask for. And you know what? Victor's even going to find its lightning energy, even though that could be found off the jolting charge, saying, I'm just going to get 2 more lightnings, 2 more grass anyway. We could be seeing that lightning energy that went to hand just be attached to Miraidon next turn to be able to take on festivities and make sure you can actually set up a board that just takes 6 prizes of the 3 different attackers. And then the only question for Victor is going to be, do I get enough boss's orders to do it?
Victor doesn't need much else in hand at this stage, with 6 energy already flooded onto the board by the end of his first turn.
That reminds me of good old days of Max Elixir, but we don't have those right now. Going back over to Vincenzo, and the name of the game here is going to be, do we find more Dracloak? We need, well, we don't need, we want 2 Dracloak. We need at least 1. Doesn't look like there's happening much from him right now.
No, typically when Dracloak are in the hand, you slam them immediately. So possibly a decision of what's the best supporter to use here. An EXP share onto Dreepy. What else do we have?
There's nothing, mate. There's absolutely nothing. Just an itchy pollen. We can get to see the Iron Hands go on this turn, and there's no Rakandy in Vincenzo's deck, which means that very, very likely Victor's going to be up 4 prizes before Vincenzo even gets to do anything, and even the boss's orders on top.
Look at this, taking out a Dreepy. I think there's even a tool in hand. You can future booster capsule your Genesect, and then you're not walking into the unfair stamp. But your hand's so average that you're not even afraid of an unfair stamp here, Jesper.
You want to be stamped.
Yeah. Please.
Please give me this stamp, because Victor also gets to draw the Pokegear and the rescue board off of the hands attack there. And, you know, getting unfair stamps into, you still then have more outs to be able to draw into. You still have Arvins to draw into, Crispins, Pokegears to draw into. Victor's deck is still chock full of cards that they want to be drawing into. And yes, now this Genesect is essentially a deck card on the bench. Yet it's a card that's thinned out of the deck.
True.
It's not going to be able to be hit again. And what Victor really wants off this stamp is either Pokegear or just straight up get boss to be able to take out this Dreepy. Since, well, if it doesn't turn into your cloak this turn, then I'd say Vincenzo's going to be in real trouble.
This is role reversal from game 1. A terrifying position for Vincenzo, who finds the 1 Dracloak recon directive. How else can we fix this position? We really have to dodge a gust from Victor next turn, but what else can we do, Jesper?
I don't think there's much fixing unless you can just make sure that Victor does not hit any gust. Luckily, the bench is full and there can be no Iron Bundle place, even though that Joltik does not, in this current iteration, play Iron Bundle. But yeah,
flip the script.
It's very much relying on what Victor hits rather than what he hits himself. So yeah, it's just going to be very, very awkward when we're getting into the stages of, yes, you can flip the script, yes, you can fill up your hand, but you're totally relying on what your opponent does, and those are the worst spots to be in.
I think the game will be decided here and now, as Vincenzo will just get one Dracloak out, set himself up for a Dragapult, and keep his bench as limited as possible, hoping that if the Dracloak isn't dealt with, one Dragapult EX could run away with the game. Lily's Clefairy EX is dangerous with that Full Moon Rondo, but isn't guaranteed to KO a Dragapult. And if you're able to limit your bench down to just these two, you can stay out of range of a Full Moon Rondo and run away with the game yourself.
Yeah, it does require very disciplined gameplay from that stage point. You have to remember that almost every single turn, and even though when you're playing Dragapult, you kind of want to fill out your bench, but currently we do not see the boss's orders, but regardless, it's still going to be empty very much for 2 prizes. And then Victor just needs to hit 2 attackers to be able to take out the Dragapult, if so. And yet, at that stage, it's still the question of, can Victor do that? Like now, Vincenzo's the one asking the questions and not opposite. But now we do get to see the Crispin. If there's 2 different energy types, we can start seeing perhaps that Miraidon being charged up and being able to deal with the Dragapult after that being hit.
Yeah, it's a huge sigh of relief for Vincenzo. He knew that as long as the Dracloak stuck around, he was in this game, and Crispin means no boss's orders. The Itchy Pollen protecting him that little bit as well, because of course you at least shut down Poké Gear at that stage. Even if it's not in Victor's hand, you're helping your outs. The Crispin, though, as you said, Jesper, can power up even more threats on this board. The Iron Hands will be taking Victor down to 2 prize cards. We know that much. But we're also starting to power up Joltik at this stage. That also does have an evolution. The only evolution in the entire deck from Victor is a Galvantula, a single prize attacking threat.
Yes, and the Galvantula has this shocking web attack, which does 50 plus 80 if this Pokemon has any lightning energy attached. And with the attack cost of that being grass and colorless, with the Joltik having a lightning and a grass energy attached, Victor would need to hit that Galvantula to be able to do that, but only would require that card to do so. Now we do see flip the script after another MP very much bringing Victor down to 2 prizes and ever so much closer to that game free spot.
We're pointing and looking at the Lily's Clefairy. We're also looking at the amount of cards in hand for Victor. Vincenzo only has access to 1 more Iono this game for disruption until he starts taking some prize cards. We have to think about all these options. The only good news for Vincenzo is there's no engine Pokemon at all for Victor in play. There's no Mew EX, there's no Pheasantipity EX. If you can find your 1 Iono, you really put Victor down to a low hand size. Also, I think Counter Catcher would be massive here, Jesper.
Counter Catcher indeed would be very massive, being able to pick up this Clefairy. Because what you could do here is that you can Phantom Dive, 200 to Clefairy, 20 to Joltik taken out, taking free prizes, then putting 40 on Genesect. If you then can, the turn after, go ahead and Halucha, Genesect, Latias, you can actually be winning, taking 2 times free prizes. But you would need Counter Catcher multiple times and Halucha to be able to do this. And it's actually really possible that Vincenzo within 2 turns with that exact line can be able to take it. Due to that Itchy Pollen damage being on Joltik, that 10 damage being ever so important.
So frequently it becomes obvious on 70 hit point Pokemon and such. But in this instance, we're going down a different route. We're putting Iron Hands EX in range, and we're scattering more counters onto more of the multi-prize Pokemon, Jesper. So we can't win simply in 2 Phantom Dives, but we're still just saying that if we have 1 turn of breathing room, 1 additional Phantom Dive, and then maybe looking towards his own Blood Moon Ursaluna EX could be huge. And crucially, with this 2 prize cards taken, Iono is finally pulled from those prizes.
Yeah, Iono finally being pulled for the prizes, and the Lucha, of course, being prized, unfortunately, has to go for this other route. Otherwise, I would have thought that Vincenzo would have gone for that. But yeah, really, really smart that he then puts the Iron Hands into range of Phantom Dive, unless there's going to come a Bravery Charm attached to it, which means that whenever this Iron Hands, for example, could go Arm Press for 160, there has to be a Blood Moon or Ursaluna waiting in the wings to deal with it, or you would need to go around it, because the Blood Moon Ursaluna actually does 240, which would leave the Iron Hands at 10 HP left, which could be very, very good if you're able to get both Latias and Blood Moon into play, and then get enough energies for the Dragapult to be moving. But it's a lot of pieces now we're asking for, because yeah, 160 with the Arm Press, not being able to deal with it this turn.
A brave Iron Hands enters the fray then. It will be an arm press for 160 damage coming onto the Dragapult EX. Vincenzo has been able to find that turn of breathing room. How far can he take it with Phantom Dive now?
Yeah, and how far can we take it with Phantom Dive is a good question. It should be 160, shouldn't it? Yeah, I'm pretty sure of that. And yeah, needing to hit that Blood Moon potentially and get to solve that. But yeah, not much I'm looking at Vincenzo's side other than if we can get this Blood Moon into play and just being able to use the Blood Moon's attack to put that down to 10 HP left and then the turn afterwards go for a 4-prize turn is the only thing I'm kind of seeing here, Joe.
Can you even put it down this turn though? I mean, it has the high enough hit points that you can do that. There's no Pikachu EX on the scene. So the Blood Moon EX you can put into play. You just can't put down the Latias just yet. But I suppose if the Dragapult goes down, then you just simply promote the Blood Moon Ursaluna. What else can we sculpt here? You have to think that Vincenzo's going to use one of the Iono that he picked up. Ooh, Monkey Dory in the mix as well. In the hand for Vincenzo. Is that even worthwhile right now? It could allow you to pressurize the Iron Hands even more. But you're going to lose the damage off this Pokemon anyway at some stage. There we go, as we do fix the damage.
But yeah, the Monkey Dory could actually be really nice here. Puts the Dragapult out of range, so then we could just go Phantom Dive instead. Then there's going to be no attacker from Victor's side that's going to be able to actually deal with it straight away, unless we do get to see Victor's own Blood Moon. That's not going to happen. Then we need a Crispin to do so. So we wouldn't be able to see an attacker that Victor hasn't played right now being able to deal with it, which makes it a little bit easier for Vincenzo to deal with this. So yeah, we are seeing both sides of this matchups and both of them drawing ever so awkwardly.
With the Monkey Dory in play, this Iron Hands is representing game though, unless we can take the KO this turn.
Unless we get something like a Braver Charm or Hope that Victor still does not have.
It's a risk.
The boss's orders, although you know what, Joe? Vincenzo took an Iono of prizes last time.
He did.
We can go Iono.
But we're trying to dodge and weave, and this Joltik box is an archetype very good and can very easily find its way towards Gust. It's built that way. The Monkey Dory can help out in some regard, but also opens the door for Victor to close the game here.
Unless we get something like an Arven into Luxurious Cape that Vincenzo also plays, can kind of stop that MQ very much coming into play onto the Monkey Dory. And yeah, we're requiring cards of Vincenzo now. I'm pretty sure that the Luxurious Cape is still within the deck. So something like an Arven could potentially be stopping that Monkey Dory falling prey as the last 2 prize cards.
Here comes the Iono then. Let's disrupt Victor down to just 2 random cards. I
didn't even think there was a boss in hand for Victor, but Vincenzo has to reckon that currently there is no reason to say that, well, Victor, you don't have a boss. Like, you rather just want to play Iono and give yourself a better shot.
Less cards is less, Jesper.
Yes. And in this case, less cards equals a more chance of winning.
Here comes the Adrenabrain from Monkey Dory. Like you said, pushing yourself out of a second attack from an Iron Hands, a second arm thrust.
Yeah, and putting the 30 damage onto the Iron Hands. And yeah, out of arm press territory means that we can go Phantom Dive, and it means that next turn we would, quote-unquote, just need to be able to get a Gusting card on and go for it. Or you could just put the 60 onto Genesect, then by that always be able.
The hand is Nest Ball and 2 Pokegear. We can grab Mew EX to draw some additional cards after a couple attempts of Pokegear. We have really good odds here to close the game. This Monkey Dory.
I would have liked being the Pokegear being played first, since you know that your old hand did not have a boss's order inside of it.
There was 4 cards at the bottom, I think. Maybe just,
because you're getting 1 card out of the deck with the Mew, and then you're drawing 2 with the Mew, 1 or 2. So
we have boss's orders. We also have Arven. Yeah. It's one of those moments, though. You know that the Nest Ball at least thins a card. If there wasn't any at the bottom, there's still an argument to be made.
Yeah.
But we have 2 attempts plus Mew EX draw to find either Arven.
There's 2 Pokegears.
Or boss's orders.
I only said 1, but yeah.
There's 2. You can't use Mew first here, surely.
Oh.
1 card.
Ultra Ball?
Ultra Ball not helpful. So Pokegear number 1.
All right.
A 7-card dig to Arven or boss's orders.
2 chances to hit it. First time around.
It's no. Arven. That's Prime Catcher. That's
He's
enough.
going to go for it, yes. He recognizes that's going to be the Prime Catcher for game, which we see there. Boom! Prime Catcher being able to take out the Monkey Dory, and we're on to game 3. Only with 11 minutes left on the clock, though. So Victor is going to try and go as fast as they can to make sure that this game can fall to them. But also Vincenzo, really, really close game. And both of them, again, awkward game. Yet being pulled into something where both players are on the fringes of being able to drag the game. But we do see a very well replay here. Victor getting to start the Miraidon, getting to go for Jolting Charge on their first turn, setting up that Iron Hands, and while setting up the game, it was a beautiful turn. We're talking 6 energies on turn 1, Joe.
Not bad. This is the traditional start. This is actually what you expect from an archetype like this. It's absurd to see 6 energy raining down onto the field this early on, but that is how the deck is built. The early aggressive Iron Hands. How often have we said that the amp you very much before your opponent's really able to react is so devastating.
And attempting to bully out these Dream Beasts, making sure that Vincenzo's not going to be able to get any Dracloaks into play. And this was the turn where if Victor had hit a boss a bit earlier, we could have said all done and dusted for that game. Although the game did drag on for a little longer, that Bravery Charm keeping Victor inside of the game still. And yeah, we're down to a game 3 in just a second. And yeah, with the finishing up moments here, Pokegear, Arvin, Prime Catcher, GG's, and we're on to game 3.
The deck just has so many outs. The Pokegears, the 4 copies of Boss's Orders, the 4 copies of the Arvin. You give yourself the best opportunity to find your way towards the win. We do see some prize cards. Vincenzo prizes his Ace Nullified Genesect and a number of his energy. 3 energy cards, including 2 of them being Luminous. That's a big issue, but Victor had an attached pass, I think, from the opening here, because Vincenzo was already going on with his Brock Scouting.
And bad news here, Joe. I don't think there's a way of getting a Miraidon even next turn. So, another bad start from Victor here.
How could this happen to me? Victor twice on stream having a rough opening hand.
Even with the triple energy prize, being able to have that attachment and a switch not to waste. So there we go. Brock Scouting into switch, into Itchy Paw on turn 1, and Victor getting a lightning energy. Could be attacking with Pikachu this turn, but it just seems so costly. Using your Topaz bolts.
We can't do that.
On a budget, you can't do that, no.
Let's crisp into Iron Hands instead. At least you have some threat being represented. But how vital is that Joltik? And to have 2 hands in 3 games where you're just not able to get your primary strategy off in the opening is so rough. Victor has to debate whether or not it's worth pulling out some non-lightning and grass energy, knowing that you could still try and weave in a Joltik later. Knowing the Iron Hands EX only requires 1 lightning to launch its Amp You Very Muches.
Yet, as we saw in game 1, the later you use the Jolting Charge, the more awkward it just gets for you. Yes, I do understand you need to set up your board state no matter how. But if you're setting up and your board looks like a turn 2 board on a turn 7, it doesn't look like a game you're going to be winning, mate. And yeah, I know Crispin going to get you 2 energies, but Joltik just gets you 4. And if you can get to Crispin and Joltik like you did in that game 2, you would be looking much better off. And yeah, we still have to respect there's 8.5 minutes left on the clock. So for both players, it's going to be an exercise of wanting to do this very fast, but also very precisely. We do see Jacques, who's going to be able to get 2 Dracloaks off, and Vincenzo just hitting everything that they need to here, getting those 2 Dracloaks out. And if we could just see an attachment, we could go and be very, very fast. Something that we traditionally don't see from the slow pull deck.
A very nice opener, the Jacques here. Vincenzo holding out on the Buddy Buddy Poffin as well. I think that's recognizing the threat of Lily's Clefairy EX, knowing that you only put these basics into play possibly when you're on a stamp turn or possibly when you're trying to weave something together. So the Jacques is the perfect supporter for this situation, grabbing immediately 2 Dracloak, the draw engine, and your main attacker here. Can Vincenzo find any additional attachments? Possibly even EXP share would be huge.
Yeah, there is a Luminous energy in hand. Could go for either attaching the second onto the Dracloak that already has an energy attached, or attempt to spread the energy just a tiny bit and make sure they're 1 on each. But there's going to be 2 energies to Dracloak now. But also the Luxurious Cape is going to save that from being within Iron Hand's range, since it gives it 100 extra HP, putting that up to 190 HP instead.
Another Crispin off the top. Yes, but that means we can begin to launch some Amp You Very Much at the very least. So we found a way towards pressure. It is an Iron Hands. You're taking 2 prize cards.
But an Amp You Very Much can turn into a Stamp You Very Much there, Joe. And that could turn into a Dragapult attacking onto the hands, being stamped at the same time, which it's what Victor falls prey to when their board is not set up properly, not even a Clefairy board, which means that off the stamp you need to hit a retreating option, a Clefairy, and a Crispin to be able to be competitive. And yeah, you're kind of giving off the sigh yourself there, Joe. That doesn't sound too good.
There's a lot of pieces required. But it's what we've got to do, Jesper. When there's no jolting charge, we have to make this play. Victor also aware of the time remaining, 6.5 minutes. We have to start taking some prizes if we're going to win this game number 3.
We do see the immediate promotion after the cloak with the 2 energy. Vincenzo seeing the lights at the end of the tunnel here. We may just be able to pull out a game which, after game 2, saw, but it seemed like we were going to be able to head straight for a tie. But here, Vincenzo could see we can get to Ultra Ball. We can get to use Festivity this turn. Even more importantly, get to see that Festivity right there off the Ultra Ball, and we get to see 2 cards from 1 recon. That's 2. 4 total. 7 cards without playing a supporter. And Flip the Script first is going to see, and I think Stamp is one of those cards you really want. You do already have the access to a Dragapult, and even a Halucha on top could have even been pulled there. So yeah, Vincenzo pulling out a lot of cards with these recon directives and Flip the Scripts.
Arven coming in. That means it will indeed be the unfair stamp floating to the hand. Vincenzo instantly punishing Victor and finding the EXP share for his backup Dracloak. Dragapult EX is evolved up as well. We have got ourselves in the perfect position to launch some aggression.
Stamp, experience share, Dragapult, everything is being hit here by Vincenzo. And yeah, Ampu very much turns into Stampu very much. And yeah, as Ross says, always about unfair stamp. Unfair by name, unfair by nature. And it's going to give 2 cards to Victor. And yeah, we're requiring a lot here. We're requiring a 3-card combo to be able to combat this Dragapult. But yo, Joe, there's only 2 bench Pokemon on Vincenzo's side, which means that a Clefairy is not going to be able to hit back on this. It just seems like such a hill to climb for Victor.
Vincenzo playing so well disciplined, as he said, Jesper. Maintaining that bench is another key piece, making it more difficult for Victor to even have a say in this game. A Phantom Dive is launched, 200 damage to the active Iron Hands EX, 6 additional counters placed onto this Pikachu that's already taken a couple hits from Budju earlier on. That really sets Vincenzo up in a fantastic spot.
And if Victor doesn't hit a Pokemon this turn, this game could be over. Do see an Ultra Ball, and I think that's a Joltik and the eventual and an Ultra Ball, but you can get Mew off this.
Yep.
Get to restart, draw 3 cards, but those cards better be good. And you're not going to be able to take out this Dragapult in the active. And Vincenzo very smartly evolved the bench Dracloak to make sure that even if a Prime Catcher or a Boss was hit off this unfair stamp, you would not be able to take any additional prize cards, meaning that if Victor doesn't take any prize cards this game, Vincenzo could just start slowly yet steadily run away with this game.
So often Iron Hands EX ignores the active Pokemon, shrugs and says, I can find 2 easy prizes elsewhere. But Vincenzo, by evolving into both of these stage 2s, has evaded that option perfectly. 3 cards then from the restart from Mew. Those are horrendous cards.
I have to tell you, Joe, that's not what we wanted, and it starts to look like we're heading towards one direction only, and I don't think Victor is happy about that direction we're heading in currently within this game. I just don't see it, really.
Oh, it's the energy attachment to Pikachu EX. We have to arm press the Dragapult once again, as we did in game number 2. You have to stay active with the Iron Hands. You have to launch an attack with it.
And even Counter Catcher is active on Vincenzo's side. Vincenzo can even go Counter Catcher Mew, knock out both Mew and Iron Hands, or even Counter Catcher Pikachu to remove both Pikachu and Iron Hands. There's so many options here. And there's already a Counter Catcher in Vincenzo's hand. So, you know, Joe, I'm pretty positive we're going to be seeing 4 prizes being taken here. It's just a question whether or not it's going to be Mew or Pikachu being taken as the secondary Pokemon knockout.
I'd love to take the Mew, honestly. Even though you're following the energy here, and the Pikachu's the thing that can take out the Dragapult, I feel like just taking away the draw, there's the EXP share on board anyway. I would like to take out the draw power. But regardless, Vincenzo's putting himself in a phenomenal position. Finishes off the Iron Hands EX, takes out Mew, goes down to 2 prize cards remaining. Victor needs answers stat.
Yeah, and I don't think that Victor's deck understood the directions you were telling it to go, and it's not stat.
Stat.
Yeah, but it's not right now, mate. It's just hitting a Pikachu off that top deck. Has to promote either Pikachu or Iron Hands on this turn. Looks like a Pikachu to stay alive initially with this Resolute Heart ability. But yeah, really, there's not much be able to be hit. Yes, there is going to be a restart. Yes, we can play out some cards from my hand with Super Rod.
3 fresh cards. The only thing that can help Victor now, Vincenzo knows he is right on the edge of closing out this game number 3 and being our only 8-0 competitor remaining in day 1. 1 minute 40 seconds remain on the clock. And Vincenzo is getting so close. He can taste that 8-0.
And that moment when you're 7-0 and you can just taste the 8-0 feels so incredibly good. I can't remember if you've done it this season, Joe. I'm pretty sure you've done it before. And I can tell you from doing it at Stuttgart myself, that is the perfect position, as long as you can make sure that you don't mess it up day 2, though. But I have trust in that Vincenzo's, with this play he's been showcasing so far, is one of the... He's putting himself initially in pole position to put themselves into a fantastic spot here in Bologna. And yeah, restart.
3 cards to rescue Victor. He does find Blood Moon Ursaluna.
Pokegear. Yes, that could give you a knockout onto the active. Yet, we still put it into a position where Vincenzo can still, with hitting the correct cards, be able to take the game straight off the bat. You know, Halucha and knock at the picture. Not that we need that. We can just go...
So many ways, yes. There are so many ways.
I think the most common way here would just be to experience share down to the Dragapult.
The 1 copy of Iono, Jesper. This is a massive hit from the Pokegear. 1 copy in the deck.
Are we going to see it?
Blood Moon Ursaluna, Energy, Iono, take the KO. Victor is not out of it yet.
Not out of it yet, but with the Blood Moon attacking, would then need to hit Prime Catcher to turn after. But let's not worry about that till next turn.
I'm just worrying about this turn,
We're worried about right now. So we do the Blood Moon attachment. Iono is going to go on perfect cards, getting off the restart. And it seems like restart's either a massive failure or such a good history to be following. And we do see,
can only draw 2 here.
Almost drawing too many cards.
Yeah,
they
caught it. We love to see that. And confirmation of time being called here. You can see with the dice that Victor is currently turn 0. His turn is still ongoing. And his Blood Moon will be launching an attack at the end of this turn. What else can he construct here?
But we'll only have 1 more turn to be able to take out the game next turn.
Yeah.
It would initially mean that if Vincenzo doesn't bench any additional Pokemon, gets a Bravery Charm to the Festivity, that he could say, you're not taking this game with the Blood Moon.
Yeah.
So Vincenzo can play defensively and guarantee, well, not guarantee a tie, we can never say that, but can at least give himself the best shot of taking a tie. Although if we're in Vincenzo's spot like 30 seconds ago, we're talking about, yeah, this is a surefire win. Although we can never say that, this was the closest I've been to tell that.
Those were some amazing cards from the Mew EX, keeping Victor in the game. It's pretty much the best and only response possible from this stage.
And it's when we're having these matches with 2 7-0 players, or both of them playing flawlessly, looking at there has to be these small, very, very small margins of top decks, of singular cards being drawn, has to be hit perfectly to be able to differentiate them from your opponents. And yet, we do see Victor again pulling it out, and I mean, with options that, you know, this Joltik deck just has so much going for it when you're hitting that 1 Iono, that 1 Blood Moon, and being able to cover up the attacker of your opponent, and then forcing them into spots where they don't want to be.
Victor eyeing up the Lily's Clefairy EX so that not necessarily only Gust for game could be win. Possibly Lily's Clefairy could attack if Vincenzo tries to launch any Phantom Dive shenanigans. Because, of course, Vincenzo still has 2 turns to win this game. He could Phantom Dive taking no prizes and still win on the 3rd turn of the game. But it will be eventually the free retreat of Mew EX going into the Blood Moon Ursaluna, who has this ridiculous 5 energy attack cost from Blood Moon, but thanks to the season's skill ability, and Vincenzo only at 2 prize cards remaining, it only costs 1. Vincenzo, action to you, 3 cards in hand, and flip the script. Can you close out this game?
Show us your hand. I think that if there was a boss or a Gust, he would have slammed it straight off the bat. But we do see it flip the script. Boss's orders, Night Stretcher.
Is there energy?
We have a Psychic energy, boss's orders, and being able to take out either Mew or Clefairy. We do see Vincenzo pulling themselves into an 8-0 pole position here in Bologna.
Congratulations, Vincenzo. Fantastic games from both our competitors there. What a wild ride that was. Again, commiserations to Victor, who found himself in a possibly winning position from a really, really awkward game number 3 there. Both players had some awkward turns. As we see the replay here, going back to that game number 1, Victor had a horrible, horrible opener. No sign of Miraidon, no sign of Joltik whatsoever. Had to sort of do his best, and Vincenzo capitalized on that beautifully with a boss's orders, phantom diving away the Mew EX, which is an attacking threat, draw power, all in one, as well as being a multi-prize Pokemon that really put Vincenzo in the ascendancy in that first game.
Yeah, and just following along further and further, Victor finally getting into the Joltik, trying to set up a few bits and pieces with the Miraidon, with the Clefairy being on bench, although falling prey a bit to the Phantom Dive from Vincenzo. And Vincenzo being able to pull off that boss's orders off the Recon Directive, play it onto the Festivity, which was perfectly set up earlier, and being able to take out that game 1.
In game number 2, finally Victor was able to find his typical strategy, which is vomit energy into play using Crispin plus the jolting charge. We ended our first turn with 6 energy in play, which enabled the Iron Hands to take control of the game. Vincenzo, lacking those Dracloak, had to have a slower turn, and we know that Iron Hands EX is fantastic at punishing those. Even with Vincenzo finding a way around the Lily's Clefairy EX, later down the line, Victor was still able to weave in attacks with the Iron Hands. The pressure of this arm thrust forced the Dragapult EX down to a range of hit points where Vincenzo felt it was correct to put Monkey Dory into play to save him.
And going further and further in this game too, Vincenzo pulled it into a spot where it looked very favorable, although the Pokegear for Arvin found the Prime Catcher, was able to take the Monkey Dory out with the arm, well, not the arm press, but thank you very much. And then Vincenzo in game 3. Victor, again, a horrible start, just like we saw in game 1, but not being able to pull it quite enough back. And